danser, 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 les amis, c'est vos volets, nous avons marché, marché, les amis, c'est vos volets, nous avons marché, 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 les amis, c'est vos volets, nous avons sauté, sauté, les amis, c'est vos volets, nous avons sauté, 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 sauter, danser, 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 marcher, 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 chanter, 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 chanter.
Hello, our friends. Good morning. Our next song is going to come from the words of the Guardian, just reminding us about there is no time to lose. As we are preparing to embark on the second phase of the 9-year plan, it's very evident that we need to make effort. All the effort is needed now, and there is no time to lose. So please enjoy the song.
There is no time to lose. There is no room left for vacillation. Multitudes hunger for the bread of life. There is no time to lose. There is no room left for vacillation. Multitudes hunger for the bread of life. The stage is set, the firm and irrevocable promise is given. The stage is set, the firm and irrevocable promise is given. God's own plan has been set in motion. 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 It's gathering momentum with every passing day. It's gathering momentum with every passing day. The powers of heaven and the earth mysteriously assisting its execution, the powers of heaven and the earth, mysteriously assisting its execution.
Allowable. When they say the stage is set, and we are talking about the revelation of Paula, this is a unique one to each and every one of us. Can you just tell me this word? Ari Mama. Actually, not here. Ari Mama. Ogogo. It means he has brought us together. Baha'u'llah has brought us. Ari Mama. Ari Mama.
Go, go, go.
Ari Mama.
Go, go, go.
I'm going to make a statement about the revelation of Baha'u'llah. Just tell me, Ari Mama Ogogo. Eule tale zuri. Ogogo eule tale zuri.
Ari Mama go, go,
Ogogo
go.
Baha'u'llah mi amamo.
Ari Mama go, go,
Ogogo
go.
Baha'u'llah mi izari.
Ari Mama go, go,
Ogogo
go.
eule tale zuri.
Ari Mama go, go, go.
Eule tale zuri.
Ari Mama go, go,
Ogogo
go.
Baha'u'llah mi amamo.
Ari Mama go, go,
Ogogo
go.
Baha'u'llah mi dizari.
Ari Mama go, go,
Ogogo
go. Eule tale zuri.
Ogogo eule tale zuri.
Ari Mama Ogogo.
Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi amamo.
Ari Mama
Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi dizari.
Ari Mama
Ogogo eule tale zuri.
Ari Mama
Ogogo eule tale zuri.
Ari Mama
Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi amamo.
Ari Mama
Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi dizari.
Ari Mama go, go,
Ogogo
go.
Baha'u'llah mi amamo. Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi dizari. Ogogo eule tale zuri.
Ari Mama go, go, go.
Eule tale zuri. Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi amamo. Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi dizari. Ogogo eule tale zuri. Ogogo eule tale zuri. Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi amamo. Ogogo Baha'u'llah mi dizari. Ogogo, 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 ogogo.
Dear friends, allow power. I have no doubt that the subject in the previous session has brought us a lot of joy, particularly on teaching and enrollment. And the insights gained on that particular subject will be very helpful to our communities, especially as we prepare to enter into the next phase of the plan. From the conversations in that session, we've seen the need of working with large numbers and welcoming friends to join the faith in groups in places where conditions allows for this to happen. And I'm sure we are all very much inspired with all these insights, and we began to think about our respective communities. And as the friends were sharing, I remembered what the House of Justice had told us in the Rizvan message 2008, if I'm not mistaken. They quoted from the writings telling us that teaching should become the dominating passions of our lives. So this is something that from what was shared earlier today, we began to see it, and we could easily feel you're part of these communities and seeing the process that is taking place in these places. So dear friends, this plenary session, we will explore the emergence of community as a visible protagonist of the plan through the lens of paragraph 4 and 5 of the 31st December 2025 message. What are the conditions required to foster a strong sense of community spirit, advancement at the level of culture within centers of intense activity? We may ask ourselves such a question. Knowing that the ultimate aim is to foster transformation and cultivate new patterns of relationships. In its 30th December 2015 message of the Universal House of Justice, the House of Justice reminded us of the words of the Master. It says, Abdul-Baha says that the more the qualities of cooperation and mutual assistance are manifested in a people, the more will human society advance in progress and prosperity. And in communities, as you go into these communities that you've described earlier, particularly in our third milestone clusters, where we've begun to see prevalence, the process is advancing to a much more higher level. And in some of such communities, you see in certain pockets, engaging larger and larger number. In these places, then some arrangements have come in place to assist in coordinating the efforts of the friends. And in such places, then we began to see collaborative arrangements coming into play. And the House of Justice, in its message, has used the word collaborative arrangements that actually come into place in such places to help organize work in villages and neighborhoods so that it can be managed well and assist the process to advance in a much more better way. I think the House of Justice uses this word collaborative arrangement in a particular way that helps us to see how this releasing of the society building powers is taking place in these places and how such processes can be strengthened by the friends having those who are able to accompany them. So in places we began to see, arrangements of putting in place groups of families, coordinators. We began to see collaborators to them who are helping and supporting the process in such places. In smaller settings where the process has been sustained over an extended period of time, the population is able to interact with the revelation of Baha'u'llah in their daily life. And as a result of that, this population is influenced with the revelation itself, and we begin to see that change at the level of culture. In this series of plans, and I think we are going to hear many examples related to this, as we strive to engage systematically in social action and participate in discourses on social issues that affect the lives of population, other natural combinations and connections comes into being. For example, women start to work together to improve the economic conditions of their families. Teachers meet to consult about how they can enhance the educational experience of children. Farmers share knowledge and expertise with each other in the entire village. Local leaders meet to consult and explore ways in which they can better serve their population. The groups gradually engage almost all those residing in these communities. We witness a community taking charge of its spiritual, material, and social progress. Every inhabitant of the village or neighborhood is a protagonist contributing to its advancement. We see a community where consultation and action is with the people. A community as an agency of its own action and ownership of its dynamics. a community that can consult and arrive at certain conclusions and decisions and act on its decisions. It doesn't wait someone from somewhere to come and act on the decisions they make. So they consult and think about their own well-being and their process. In some places, the role of local spiritual assemblies in this setting is coming to the fore, not as the prosecutor of the projects, but through the constant support of the assembly, the process within the village becomes self-perpetuating, and the community emerges as a visible protagonist in the plan. The role of the auxiliary board members as well and their assistants become very vital in these places. In the 30th December message 2011, the House of Justice said, "The initial stirrings of grassroots social action begin to be seen in clusters as the availability of human resources increase and the capacity for a wide range of tasks develops." And in the 31st December message, 2025, the House of Justice helps us to see community-based initiatives, modest but sustained, represents an arena of endeavor implicit in the program from the very beginning. This suggests that consciousness needs to be created about the way in which sequence of courses cultivates capacity for social action, just from the very beginning of the first book of the main sequence. Before I invite the directors from the Baha'i International Development Organization to offer some remarks on this very subject, I would like to highlight the following areas, which when later we open the consultation, we hope to hear many examples from these places on how this is happening or what is happening in these communities. One, we would be very happy to hear examples of how a pronounced community spirit is increasingly being felt among all those involved in the pattern of activity in a third milestone cluster. How a feeling of belonging and a sense of common endeavor and mutual support is being fostered. Collaborative arrangements emerging in these communities, groups of families and households, other natural groupings such as women or youth, farmers or educators, and animators or children class teachers, often with the support of a network of friends. We would also be very happy to hear how these groups organize their own efforts to improve some aspects of the life of the community, promote broader participation, and help the growth and development of the community to become self-perpetuating. Finally, it will bring a lot of joy also to hear some examples of community-based initiatives emerging in these communities. In most places, the examples will be of community-based initiatives emerging out of activities of the plan or through the support of the Baha'i-inspired organization. So I'll take the opportunity to invite dear Sina, who is going to, I'm sure if he has got additional questions, he might add to the order as well. So dear Sina, please.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Alapa, friends. So for both on behalf of Dr. Debbie and I, it is a real joy and privilege to be with you here in this gathering on behalf of the Baha'i International Development Organization. As you all know, the purpose of the institution that we serve is to facilitate a global process of learning about Baha'i engagement in social action. And so for us within the organization, your insights and experiences in East Africa are always present in our discussions and are giving us greater and greater insight into the manner in which the society-building powers of the faith are being progressively released. So we are very happy to be here to learn from you and to share just a few comments to contribute to the conversations you will be having. The comments that Councillor Townsend mentioned also covers many of the points that I was thinking to share, so it will just maybe help to highlight or reinforce some of them. So you remember in the 31 December message, the 2025 message, the House of Justice in paragraph 5, which is paragraphs 4 and 5 is the focus of our conversations. In paragraph 5, it mentions that these community-based initiatives represent an area of endeavor which has been implicit in a program of growth from the beginning. So what I'll do is just share, before going into the specifics about community-based initiatives, just to share some general context about this area of activity that the House of Justice mentions, and then go a bit deeper into community-based initiatives. So as we all know, the revelation of Baha'u'llah is here to transform both the inner and outer life of mankind. Social action is defined as our efforts to learn to apply the teachings of the faith to help to improve the social and material life of society. As we know, social action involves a broad spectrum of activities. Some are very simple and they start and they stop, and some are sustained, and some are also more and more complex. They also happen in different settings. They sometimes happen increasingly in communities. They also happen in other settings. And as you know, this publication for the betterment of the world helps to describe the full spectrum of activities and the different spaces in which these activities are emerging. I understand that Swahili version has been recently translated and will almost soon be available. In our discussion so far, we have of course been focusing on the features of a cluster that's passed the third milestone. And of course in the next phase of the plan, we'll be seeing many more of these clusters that have passed the third milestone. So as we know, one of the features of a cluster that's reached the stage of development, even as described in the December 2015 message, is a greater capacity to engage in social action. So as a natural part of helping a cluster to move from one milestone to the next and to acquire the capacities associated with the third milestone, their capacity to engage in social action also is one element that naturally emerges and grows within these clusters. So I'm sure a question on our minds, as we see many more of these third milestone clusters grow, is what can we expect to see as these number of clusters increase and as within them capacity to engage in social action grows. And I'm sure for the institutions and agencies of the faith, a question that's on their minds is, well, what areas are helpful? Not only what do we expect to see, but what areas is it helpful to focus on as this capacity grows? So we will touch on three aspects here. One is a strengthening educational process. A second aspect is the proliferation of formal and informal initiatives, of which then we'll give particular attention to community-based initiatives. And the third area is the growing capacity of institutions and agencies at the cluster level to create conditions for learning in this area. So regarding the educational process, of course this will be covered in greater depth when we start to explore in subsequent sessions paragraph 6 of the message. But suffice it to say that just as in expansion consolidation, every increase in capacity to engage in social action is accompanied by or is propelled by an increase in the strength and quality of the educational processes, especially, but of course not exclusively, for the young people who are systematically assisted to acquire the capacities to apply knowledge from both science and religion to improve the life of their community. So many of us here, of course, we've studied Unit 1 of Book 13. That unit has been helping us to see and to describe the various ways in which social action is emerging. It helps to generate discussions that help us to see why the Institute is central to our capacity to engage in social action and in what ways it's central. So, for example, you remember those sections where it helps us to reflect on the individual transformation that begins to happen as someone begins to encounter the Word of God. And as we change our own inner life, then also naturally our outer life is affected as well. You know, our choices are affected, our aspirations are affected, how we carry ourselves is affected, our goals, how we relate with others, all of these is affected as a natural outcome of this inner transformation. The same happens also at the collective level, at the level of culture. Yes, and as Councillor Townsend helped us, highlighted that the spirit of mutual support and reciprocity and many other changes in culture begin to happen as the Institute takes roots within a community. At the same time, we know that the Institute cultivates different capacities. And of course, these capacities that we acquire, we apply them in the context of the core activities, but you can't keep a capacity bottled up in one area. When you develop those capacities, it expresses itself in many ways. So those very same capacities that we engage, that we develop in the context of the core activities, also applies to other aspects of the life of the community. Then you remember in that same unit in Book 13, then it goes on after we reflect on the individual and collective transformation and capacities that the Institute helps to develop, we also begin to reflect on specific initiatives that emerge. As the House of Justice mentions, that we can expect to see in these advanced communities a proliferation of informal and formal initiatives. So, of course, we know many of these are these initiatives that just start and stop, and they stop as when the objectives are met. So many of the examples that we know about is the service projects of our junior youth groups. A group of youth decides to help to pave a road. A group of families carries out some specific action to help their neighbors. A campaign in the community to raise awareness about health. Or one or another health issue. In all of these, what's important is that they are seen not only as just activities, but rather as opportunities to apply the teachings of the faith within the context of that project. How a spirit of mutual support is expressed even in that project. How this effort is also carried out with the spirit of excellence. How it is done in consultation with others. So, and as we know that I'm sure as we look at all of our communities, we see that there will be many of such initiatives. And what's important to recognize is that even as we talk about more sustained initiatives, the ones that start and stop are also a fundamental part of community life. An activity starting and stopping is not a sign that it is not a sign of weakness in that activity. It's like if you look at a garden, grass is also part of the garden. Yeah, so within a garden, all kinds of plants and species are needed. So same within a community, these initiatives of fixed duration, we want to see many and many of them, and also emerging with greater and greater spirits and a more and more conscious application of the teachings. Then you remember there's a few sections in Book 13 that help us to reflect on sustained initiatives within a community. Of course, at the time that unit was written, the term community-based initiative wasn't used. So I'm sure in future, maybe the term community-based initiative will be used. But as we see in this message from the House, in the 31 December 2025 message, the House mentions modest but sustained initiatives of social action. So when we think about these modest and sustained initiatives of social action, surely there are many around us in our communities that that as we look, we'll find. What was Councillor Augustino was mentioning? If you seek, you shall find. Is that it? So I'm sure then, you know, when the House mentioned this term community-based initiatives, I know a lot of us were asking, what is this community-based initiative? How do they form? You know, how do they start? How do they continue? What do they look like? So I'm sure now over time, as the House has described more, we're able to see more and more of them. But at a simple level, you know, at the heart of it is just a group of people who are consulting, acting, reflecting, studying together, and working with the community to improve some aspect of the life of the community. So let's think about some examples. So, for example, a group of animators who are sustaining a regular tutorial space to help the junior youth with homework. A group of youth who have a drama group. Yeah, a youth who carry out drama periodically in the community to raise consciousness about some issue or some principle. A group of friends in a community who create music that for the community to also help to disseminate meaningful ideas and concepts to improve the life of the community. A group of mothers who get together to support each other and to strengthen the education of their young ones. A group of farmers who come together and decide to collaborate and have a learning plot together. A group of promoters of community well-being who form a local health post in collaboration with the government. So some of these are a natural outcome of the institute process. Some of these come through the additional support of a behind-inspired organization. But if you see actually that when we look around, even the community-based initiatives themselves is quite a spectrum by itself. There are some community-based initiatives that are very simple and other community-based initiatives that might become more complex. So when we look in our clusters and we think, well, are there some community-based initiatives underway? Also keep in mind some of these simple, these modest, sustained initiatives that are there. So going back a little bit to the question of education, even for community-based initiatives, one thing to emphasize for these is also the centrality of education and the Institute. So how the Institute helps us to develop certain capacities that makes these activities even more meaningful and effective. And maybe going back to how we even understand social action, if social action is defined by the ability to apply the teachings of the faith to improve some aspects of the life of this community, then in that light, the role of the Institute becomes even more, much more apparent. How the Institute helps us to develop the capacity to apply the teachings. So for example, if one looks at a junior youth group, as you know, many of the materials of the program itself are Baha'i inspired. They help us to explore understanding of spiritual reality, and they help to strengthen certain capacities in language, in maths, and science. So in addition to the educational impact that it has on the individuals, you also see, and I'm sure there'll be many examples that you could share about how over a period of 3 years, the kind of service projects that the junior youth engage in. And if you compare the kinds of projects in year 1, after they've done 1 or 2 texts, with year 3, after they've done 8 or 9 or 10 texts, you'll see an evolution in the nature of those service projects. You'll see an evolution in the capacity of this group to reflect together, to read the reality of the community with spiritual perception, and also to carry out collective actions together, to collaborate, to plan, to consult, to reflect, to refine their activities, to engage in a continuous process of learning. Then if we go through the books of the main sequence, as indicated by the House of Justice, so even in the same paragraph 5, so if one, I'm sure we can also bring out many examples about how Book 1, for example, helps a group of people to acquire the habit of collectively studying the writings together, of consulting and considering their implications. How it also helps a group of people to place all of their choices and their activities in the context of a life of service. And also this consciousness that we are here to acquire spiritual qualities for all the worlds of God. So I remember being a few months ago in a conversation with a group of farmers, and this group of farmers had just gone through Book 1, and how they described the impact that Book 1 had on their own activities as farmers, and how one of the qualities of the soul is generosity. And actually, as farmers, if we use this quality of generosity, how much knowledge we have in the community and how much resources we have that we can share with each other. In Book 2, for example, we see the capacity to engage in meaningful conversations and the capacity to do so in a more and more systematic way. So we see also how helpful this is for any initiative of social action. That for an initiative of social action to be sustained, it also requires ongoing conversations with the community about many concepts and many matters that is helpful to be in conversation with others. But even other spiritual qualities that you think that you remember, for example, to focus on the joy of service and to be detached from results. If one thinks about Book 3, an understanding of education, the nature of conversations with parents and the community about education as well. Even Book 4, for instance, this understanding of crisis and victory. Yes, that actually the progress of the cause advances through natural cycles of crisis and victory. But isn't that true for any long-term endeavor? For any process that we're engaged in, that crisis will come, victory will come, and reflecting on the lives of the manifestations of God also helps us to place our own actions in this longer context and to draw inspiration from the lessons that they're teaching us. We'll see many others, the ability to consult, to work together, to apply the writings. All of these emerge as groups of people who go through the Institute process and are so essential for a sustained and growing community-based initiative. What we have learned also about the... I was trying to remember what was the point I had here. So, when the Baha'i International Development Organization last year, 2 years ago, was analyzing for the House of Justice some of the conditions in which community-based initiatives were emerging, and some of the clusters, some of the communities in which a large number of such initiatives were emerging, it was no surprise to see that what we have learned about sustaining our own activities, our own educational activities within the community, also translates to our ability to sustain initiatives in the area of social action. So, for example, to be able to keep a children's class for several years, all of the qualities and attitudes, the determination that's needed, the consultation that's needed, what it requires to keep a junior youth group for 3 years. Yeah, all of the challenges you'll encounter, the love that it requires, the dedication it requires, our ability to keep a study circle from Book 1 to 7, and also extends to our ability to have these initiatives. So it's no coincidence that those communities in which there has been a focus on developing capacity to have sustained, ongoing educational activities are also those in which we're seeing a natural emergence of sustained community-based initiatives. And of course, in those clusters where either there's the PSA program is being implemented or some friends are participating in the study of the units, that also helps to further extend this process. But it's interesting to see that it's not necessarily through the program that sustained initiatives emerge. Actually, through a strengthening institute and junior youth program, already these sustained community-based initiatives emerge. But then engagement with other educational endeavors helps these capacities to grow and helps to extend them and to expand them. So as these formal and informal initiatives proliferate, both the activities of short duration and the sustained community-based initiatives, then a question for us, of course, is what is the role, or in what ways are institutions and agencies of the faith within the cluster contributing to this? So I'll mention a few. Councillor Townsend had already mentioned some. So of course, the first one is to emphasize the continued deepening and extending of the educational process. So of course that is of course one of the first responsibilities. In addition, we see that the institutions and agencies of the faith are playing an important role in helping a community to enhance understanding about the concepts and principles involved in social action. There's much that the House of Justice has mentioned in its guidance about the nature of social action, about some of the concepts in social action, some of the principles in social action. Book 13, of course, is there that also helps us. There's other materials that are there that help us to understand social action. So one important role of the institutions and agencies of the faith, as more and more friends begin to engage in social action, is just to help a growing number of friends to understand what are the concepts and principles involved. As we know, engaging in social action is something that is prevalent within society. So friends are engaged in many developments, initiatives in general. So even more important that as our own efforts to engage in this area increase, that it's continuously accompanied by an ongoing process of going back to some of the concepts and principles that the House of Justice has given us. And that helps us to adjust and to refine our learning process and to make it distinct. Another way in which we're seeing institutions and agencies of the faith are also contributing to or helping to create the conditions for the emergence and for learning about social action is by creating spaces or utilizing existing spaces to also extend reflection to include initiatives that are emerging in this area. For instance, our cluster reflection meeting. As a community, we're also learning about how we're putting the teachings of Baha'u'llah into effect in society through different initiatives. So sometimes our cluster reflection meetings we're seeing also include some natural reflection about these initiatives. Or within a nucleus in a community, our conversations also, we also include conversations about some of these initiatives and some of these efforts that are underway. Another way in which institutions of the faith have been at the cluster level, but at every level have been contributing, is also fostering coherence and helping to see all of these initiatives as part of one forward movement. Naturally also, many issues emerge as many issues emerge, many challenges might emerge as our work becomes more complex. So I think, like the quote that the point that Councillor Townsend mentioned, rather than the assemblies or the institutions being the executors of projects, to serve as a voice of moral authority, to be able to offer encouragements. Many initiatives might stop just out of lack of encouragements and an encouraging or loving word. To offer counsel if disunity arises. To help connect them to relevant sources of knowledge. Maybe sometimes for an initiative to advance, what's required is additional scientific knowledge. And maybe which are the institutions, either Baha'i-inspired organizations or other institutions in society that could help to connect the relevant scientific knowledge. So we see also the role of the institutions of the faith in helping to make connections among different efforts. So one last point we wanted to highlight is, of course, that we are not unique in these collective initiatives to improve the well-being of the community. Like Councillor Townsend mentioned, especially in Africa, every community has a wealth of initiatives that are already underway, a wealth of efforts where people are collaborating with one another to improve their own life or the life of the community. So we have many examples. I think Councillor Townsend mentioned a group of farmers sharing seeds, a group of mothers with a small business trying to improve the material life of their families and help support the education of their children. A group of friends with a savings group, a group of youth again doing music. Many of these might already exist within our community. So that leads to another question, especially in those places where the activities of the faith are prevalent. In what ways can these initiatives also be endowed with those spiritual qualities and attitudes that we see are there in the Institute? Many of these initiatives that we see also fall because of a lack of unity. Or there's a need to reflect more on mutual support. Or there might be a need to think beyond themselves and to also think about the betterment of the community. Or the ability to operate in a learning mode, to operate through cycles of consultation, action, reflection, study. So the question for us is not always, how do we have more of our own quote-unquote initiatives, but also, especially in these places with greater prevalence, how to also see these initiatives that are there for the well-being of community as also part of us, and how we can help more and more and learn together with those how to also draw on Baha'u'llah's revelation and to be reshaped by it. So perhaps in some of the communities where we come from, these can also be included in our reading of reality, in our own learning processes. So I think those were some of the thoughts that we had.
So dear friends, feel free to raise your hands and we'll pick you.
Alapa. I'll share about a collaborative arrangement that exists in some of the communities in a Tricky West cluster, specifically Givogi community. I'll begin by sharing some of the groups that are existing within the village that is enhancing support of the community to the increased number of those who are participating in the community building process. In Givogi community, there is a number of groups ranging from groups of farmers. Like in this case, we have Wezesha Kilimo initiative that brings together groups of farmers just to address the issue of food insecurity within the community. There is also some efforts of the communities, of course, to address the primary health care of the people of Givogi. And deliberate steps really to engage the community health promoters within the community, of course, exposing them to the revelation of Baha'u'llah and seeking ways in which we can collaborate together to address the health of the people of Givogi. Also, some efforts also to engage teachers, in this case, pre-primary school teachers within Givogi community, just exposing them to the revelation and how the revelation talks about education, how we view education, and really seeking ways in which we could collaborate together with these preschool teachers. Those are some of the groups, but I'll measure my deliberation on groups of families that are within Givogi community. In Givogi community, there are 27 groups of families. And these 27 groups of families are engaging 313 households of the population of 950. In these 27 groups of families, there are arrangements also within these groups of families to increase the number of households that are connected to the community building process. And these arrangements are in place. They are coming as a result of connecting a number of groups of families together to disseminate the learning that exists in these groups of families. So in Givogi, we are having 12 centers for learning. So the community is learning about centers for learning. And these 12 centers for learning, you realize that there are a number of groups of families that are connected to a center. And in each center, there is, say, a tutor, an animator, a teacher, who is concerned in, of course, raising the capacities within these centers. And each center has a capacity either of offering 1 or 2 activities, educational activities, or in other centers we realize that they have a capacity to offer all the available educational activities. So for example, the center that is at the Baha'i Center is able to offer Rui Book 1 to Book 14. It's able to offer 14 texts of junior youth, and is able to offer children classes from grade 1 to grade 5. So we can see this arrangement in this community really working closely with the already existing groups of families, and ensuring that a good number of households are engaged to the community building process. Thank you.
Alapa. So I wanted to share a little bit about how in the paragraph 4 the House of Justice tells us that there's a pronounced community spirit being felt, and some things about advances at the level of culture. I mean, there are glimmerings of that in one of the neighborhoods that we work in Addis Ababa cluster. So as my friends mentioned, Addis Ababa is an urban cluster, and one of the neighborhoods of focus is called Takola. Just to give you a picture of Takola, it's at the periphery of the city. It's a very tightly clustered housing situation where it's a very vibrant community, and the people are settled from all over Addis, so it's a very diverse community, but predominantly Christian. And the efforts there have been sustained over a longer period of time, like multiple decades and so on. So yeah, that has been happening there. So as the educational processes have been strengthened, and for example, as of now, the group of youth at the forefront of the community building activities, they have gone through the junior youth texts and are going through the institute, and there are certain things that you can observe that you can say maybe are advancements at the level of culture that you can discern. So I'm just sharing some glimmerings that we observe. One thing you can observe immediately is the relationship of those youth with children and those younger than them. So if you just walk through any neighborhood, you'd see that the age groups are very divided, but in Takola, or particularly in that area, the youth really care about those younger than them. And that's also at the level of the community, because, for example, mothers would ask those youth to advise their younger ones, or they'll tell them reprimand X or Y, so there's a trust or understanding or sense of responsibility that they feel. And you'd also observe that they would consult on certain things, like younger people going swimming at a dangerous place. The youth would actually consult and say, what do we do? Some things like that. Another thing that you see is how gender mixing happens. Actually, until a friend asked us to observe how the community building activity is contributing to the equality, the principle of equality. We've never observed this before, but it's a very because it's an Orthodox Christian dominated culture, genders don't usually mix, girls and boys don't hang out together. But those who have passed through the junior youth program and those who are at the community building activities, you could see them hanging out and doing things together, and it's very you can actually see it, because it's a high contrast. Another thing is how the culture of consultation has been as was mentioned, capacity developed through the Institute of Consultation. You could see it in all aspects of the youth's life. So whenever an opportunity comes, whenever somebody does something, there's a culture of consulting, supporting one another, pursuing opportunities together, thinking about those younger, and things like that. Another thing that seems to be emerging is the meaningful utilization of holidays and other cultural aspects of the community. For example, in the Ethiopian New Year, there's a culture of young people, children, drawing and giving their drawings to houses. Maybe not, I don't want to say selling them, it's just exchanging them for things. But now, those the forefront, what they do is they would organize a space for the young people to come together and draw together. And they would sometimes nudge them to include even quotations from the children classes. And then now they're handing out drawings drawn together in a setting, and things like that. And another thing is, for example, in Christian holidays and any holiday celebration, there's I don't want to say casual drinking. Like, for example, there's cultural drinks that are brewed in each household, and if you're at your house, you're going to be prompted to drink. But the young people there, obviously they identify themselves as Baha'is, but they haven't done that for their families, so they don't have a good excuse to refuse drinking, right? So what they do is they now organize themselves and celebrate these holidays together. And it's a new kind of celebration also, because there's devotional, there's eating together, making food together, dancing, even praying. And even for the last celebration, people were reflecting. It's a new kind of celebration where you dance and pray and eat together and things like that. So that's also another at the level of culture that we have been seeing. And I think, there are certain things that you see with a group of youth that are at the forefront. Thank you.
Can the mic go to Gerald? Okay. Gerald, if you can just raise up your hand so that the mic can get to where you are. I see. It's at the far end. There's the mic at the back, okay. And then after Gerald, the mic can go to Blessing.
I'm going to share about how some of the social action initiatives that are emerging from Namasagali cluster, because from experience we realize this is coming from the effort strengthening the institute. But also, on the other side, it is from the support of the Kimanyangeyo Foundation for Science and Education. So to start, I'm sharing from Namasagali cluster, one of the advanced clusters. So we have this from Kavule A, there is this particular class, where of about 23 children. So from this class, you realize there were some children who were coming to the class because it had met over some time. So now the teacher notices that some of the children are coming, but the condition, their health condition, of course, was not good in terms of their hygiene. So this prompted the teacher to now engage the families in conversations about the condition of these children. So the families were engaged about how the hygiene of the children could be improved. But now, besides the hygiene of the children, the teacher was prompted to also extend conversations on this can be maintained, but also include the sanitation in the homes. So these families were engaged in these rigorous conversations on how to improve the health of their homes now. So it went beyond the children now to the level of the family. So to pick out that forced the teacher in conversations with the nucleus now in the village to all talk about the need for the value for plate stands as one of the ways, besides keeping the hygiene, but also to improve the health of the family, to have plate stands at the level of the family. But also conversations extended beyond that to help the family see the value of having pit latrines within the family. Because besides having, even those that had them, but of course, what does it mean, the value, so even how we maintain them and that. So these conversations now helped the team to refer to the village health team, who was also included and gave support, because these village health teams are part of the government structure to promote health within at village level. So we see those efforts coming from, emerging from the institute. So, but part of the health, of course, we realize it is connected to the nutrition. So the conversation, because the LSA was supporting the members of the local speech assembly, supported the village nucleus alongside the teacher to engage these families in conversation. Then the conversations about the nutrition came in, and the families were assisted on what they can do to also improve the nutrition as part of maintaining, improving their health. And this brought in the having vegetable gardens, especially growing eggplants, and as part of the efforts to promote the health. So we picked out from that one. Conversations are still ongoing rather, and I know there is a lot that we have questions before the local speech assembly, and but so far that's what we could share for now about those efforts. Besides that, I say there is also the support of the resource person. So the class is lucky to have the resource person from Kimanyangeyo who is supporting in efforts to bring about this material, but alongside the spiritual. So when this individual was deployed in the village, he started working with few families, engaging them in conversation, because the cluster and in these villages of Kavule and Nansolo, they have sustained the process for some time. So somehow they knew that the Baha'i faith maybe is after improving the spiritual life of it. But now these conversations started to include the material and the spiritual and how these are combined. So currently there are 30 families that engage in conversations on how they can improve their spiritual and material life. But now among these, we pick out the youth and the mothers that are coming from these families. So these rigorous conversations led to these families having backyard gardens, especially to do with vegetable growing. But this is alongside the conversation to help them how they can improve their lives, both spiritual and material. And but from this, the friends were able, the 8 young mothers, because of the conversation on how they can see this coherence between spiritual and material, they decided to start up with a study circle, book 1. But in this study circle, it was to help them now address the spiritual part of their lives. But now in these conversations, these mothers in the study circle, they will help to understand, but you see, we are speaking about your education, but you have children. So again, education of their children came in. And the resource person helped them to understand that there are these materials that can assist them. So lessons from nurturing young minds have been started to give them as a way of helping them to see how they can improve their capacity to also not handle just their speech education, but also the education of their children. And thank you.
Hello, Upper friends.
So, Blessing, just to mention, after you, we have a dip will follow, and then after a dip from the Eastern Uganda, and then Tobias from Tanzania, and then we have Vitalis will follow.
Okay. Hello, Upper friends. So I'll share on examples of sustained community-based initiatives in Matunda Soy cluster. But of course, in the past 4 years, we've had a number of community-based initiatives, but not all of them have been sustained for a long period of time. And just to mention this is due to the conditions that were created by the Training Institute in terms of creating a pool of human resources and building into them capacities and capacities to read social reality, and also the right spiritual qualities and attitudes to participate in social action. So we've had a large number of initiatives, as I'd mentioned, and these initiatives were from junior youth groups projects, from PSA materials. After studying, we had kitchen gardens, we had compost piles, but my deliberations, I'll focus them on the sustained community-based initiatives, and I'll share on 2 areas, one on sports and another one on ag. So on sports, the initiative is Luanda United Sports Academy. So this initiative started last year, 1 month after the Learning Site Institute, after the Learning Site seminar in June 2025. And this initiative was as a result of the evening sports activities that were organized as part of the seminar program. So these activities attracted large number of youth who would come and join the participants in the activities. And towards the end of the seminar, one of the questions was, how do we continue engaging these youth, not only in sports, but also in the activities, in the core activities? maybe those who are at the right age to join the institute program, those who have already started the institute program to progress in the main sequence, and also those ones that are at the right age to join the junior youth groups to join the junior youth groups. So when it was starting, it engaged 15 youths, but as per now, it has 94 youths who are at different levels in terms of children classes, junior youth groups, and also the main sequence. And just recently, we've had a number of them, that is 10 to be specific, who have joined a PSA group that is in Luanda. Yeah, so, and also this initiative is also having friendly matches with other initiatives in the community that are engaged in sports. Yeah, then the other initiative that I'll share is on Stawisha, is on agriculture, and that is Stawisha Kilimo. So Stawisha Kilimo started in 2023 as a small project to sustain the staff of Radio Stawi with food. The initiative started with a small land in Godown, but later on it moved to Luanda as well. So, and this was a result of community members showing interest to learn improved agricultural practices. So those who are following closely the initiative, in collaboration with Try for Good, trained 15 youths in land techniques including double digging, raised bed gardening, normal digging, and super digging. So in the initiative also has seed bank that do support farmers around Luanda with, by providing affordable seeds. And there is also an ongoing effort to reach 250 families to spread and apply DHE plots. Around 120 families are implementing these practices. So as we speak, the initiative has reached 120 families, but the target is to reach 250 households. And of course, Radio Stawi plays a key role in making sure that other people are able to know what goes on in Stawisha Kilimo in terms of mobilizing farmers, disseminating knowledge that is being gotten from the Stawisha Kilimo. Then also another area that I wanted to share is how these initiatives are promoting participation in these communities. So one of the ways has been to have consultative spaces, and we've had a number of them, but the most recent one was in Luanda just last month. And this consultative space was as a result of one of the participants in the PSA program, who is also a village manager. So with his help, he invited us to participate in a chief baraza, and the theme of exploration in this chief baraza was health. So, and one thing that was evident is a number of the CHPs, that is community health promoters, had already studied health and disease. And this was very enriching in terms of the conversations. Then another way that we are trying to widen this participation is also through having conferences that bring together like-minded organizations just to reflect on different themes of the communities. Thank you.
Who is the next? Adip, if the mic can go next to Adip.
I'm going to share on Ngora cluster, that is from eastern part of Uganda, on how these community-based initiatives emerged. But before I go on, maybe I could give a brief account. We see all these community-based initiatives. As we talk of them, we have realized, like in agriculture, health, and also youth engaged in businesses, small business, have emerged because of the collaborative arrangements that are existing in the region and also the cluster. So we started learning this from Ngora cluster, particularly Kalengo village. All this came as a result of activities of the expansion and consolidation, then also support from the Kimanyangeo education foundation for science and education. So if we look at Kalengo, Kalengo village is located in Opot Town Council, Kalengo Ward, Ngora District, eastern part of Uganda. So the village is under the jurisdiction of the local spiritual assembly of Opot Town Council. It has a population of 900 individuals and a total households of 126. So we see now when we come to look at activities that are in this village, maybe before also we go to activity, the village is organized in groups of families. We have 5 groups of families. And in these 5 groups of families, we have also access centers or learning centers. And now when we look at the demographics or the statistics, we really see that the village is sustaining 11 children classes, 7 junior youth groups, 16 study circles, and 126 devotional meetings, with a participation of about 804. And a village has 98 Baha'is. So now when we come to how this, since 30th December 2023, the community has been engaged in a learning process aimed at raising consciousness about spiritual and material progress of the community. So all this came because I was giving out these demographics, the statistical part. We realized that before we started these arrangements, they were already existing, these activities of expansion and consolidation. And within these activities, we really see that, like in Kalengo, these activities have really delved deep the entire village. And the community was very aware of the activities that were existing. But we realized that there were other questions that the community was asking. They were appreciating Baha'is have brought us these new activities that are raising our capacities. But now the question was on the material aspect of life. Now here we had a blessing of starting this area from the end of on 30th December 2023, where community had been engaged in a learning process, as I said, in raising this consciousness of both spiritual and material progress. So we see that during this period, a resource person was deployed from Kimanyangeo. And this resource person was deployed direct to Kalengo neighborhood, Kalengo village, to strengthen its capacity for collective reflection and learning in the connection to this area of endeavor. So now, as we went on, we had a community gathering when a resource person was deployed. So that is that was December 2023 is when we had this community gathering. And in this community gathering is when this all effort started, whereby a number of 66 participants, community individuals attended it. And during that community gathering, consultations were made, and some of the conclusions came up with in regard to raising the challenges that the community is facing, and among those challenges were related to economic and social aspects of life. So to address these challenges, the community shown interest to engage in also learning through PSA and Ruhi Institute materials, and the support from naturally the resource person who was assisting the community. So through this, as a resource person became instrumental in this progress, whereby the resource person started this journey of accompanying the community in assisting, raising this consciousness. So now we realize that a number of, at first instance, a number of about 22 individuals first started. So before we go back to even to, but that's now the statistical part of it. So if we go now to other areas, maybe because of interest of time, we started learning on this, maybe studying Ruhi materials and so on. Then we went on, the community had another number of series of gatherings that continued after that study, whereby we had agricultural gatherings, There were also other gatherings like local leaders and the others. Through those gatherings is when this aspect of agricultural initiative first emerged. And we realized that in that gathering, farmers became organized in groups, 4 groups with about 54. So we realized that those collaborative gatherings brought these initiatives to start existing, like agriculture, then natural education, where parents started consulting about the education of their children, and also the naturally, this part of a business as I talked of. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adip. So of course we have Tobias, will be followed by Vitalis, Oscar, and then Albert. But before Tobias, maybe I'll invite the teaching center member.
So you know, friends, we wanted to mention that over the course of almost 4 plenary sessions, all of the examples you're sharing are so rich. And so we wanted to just take this opportunity to reiterate what the counselors have said, which is that we hope that each person sharing, we see that many of you have even already written. You're reading some of your notes. So we want to reiterate that if you can please share those notes, and I think the counselors earlier shared who, no? So who was it? It was the 8, but who are the names so that they can remember? Martha, Mateso, Bitia was the other one? Okay, and Kevin. And Mateso's in the back. So please, all of you that are sharing, please send it to these friends, because we want to be able to have it. And at least for the 4 of us from the World Center, we want to be able to take this back with us. So just to reiterate again.
And it is because you are sharing such wonderful experiences. But as you know, the work of the teaching center is to disseminate to the world. You disseminate among yourselves, but we deal with the world. So your experiences need to go beyond your zone. So if you do it, you'll be helping a lot.
And by the way, then you're not limited to 5 minutes. You can write as much as you want. Okay.
Tobias, where is Tobias? If the mic can go there. Hopefully there is an arrangement for translation for Tobias as well. And then Vitalis, Oscar, and then Albert.
Allow our friends. Napenda kushiriki kutoka kijiji kilichoendelea cha Titie. Kijiji cha Titie kina shughuli kadhaa ambazo nimeziainisha hapa. Madarasa ya watoto yako 109 ambao ushiriki wake ni 1111 ambao yanatendwa na watu 109. Vikundi vya vijana chipukizi viko 66 ambavyo ushiriki wake ni 558 ambayo yanatendwa na marafiki 66. Na vikundi vya mafunzo viko 35 ambao ushiriki wake ni 168 ambavyo vinaendeshwa na marafiki 26. Na makundi ya kifamilia kwa ujumla yako 126 ambayo yamejumuisha familia 873 ambayo takribani marafiki ambao wanajumuishwa humo ni kama 3000. Na shughuli za kijamii ziko 8. Na mikutano ya ibada ni 1567 ambayo imejumuisha marafiki. Mikutano ya ibada ni 1567 ambayo imejumuisha marafiki 5611.
Mr. Tobias is sharing from Lalambe cluster, but focused on Titie village, where he just mentioned of the activities that are happening there. And he began with children classes. The number is 109, assisting 1,011 and 1,011 children, and the teachers assisting are also 109. The junior youth activities number to 66, with a participation of 558, and those assisting with the same. But we also have yes, the stud circles that exist in Titie village are 35, involving maybe we need to get the number. Then we have your devotional meetings in the whole village, 1,567 devotional meetings, hosting 5,611 people. Then there's this arrangement of groups of families. There are 126, involving 873 families, hosting around 3,000 people in the devotion. In those families.
Kwa hiyo hapo walimu, wawishaji, wakufunzi na yale makundi ya kifamilia wote wamewekwa kwenye makundi yanayokaribiana. Walimu wamewekwa kwenye makundi ya walimu wanaokaribiana, na wawishaji wamewekwa kwenye wawishaji wanaokaribiana, na wakufunzi pia wamewekwa kwenye wakufunzi wanaokaribiana, na makundi ya kifamilia pia yamejumuishwa kwenye makundi ya familia yanayokaribiana ili kuona namna kuweza kuratibu vizuri shughuli hizo.
So coming to the structures that exist to make sure that there is a continuity of all these activities, he has spoken of the collaborative arrangements, and he has spoken of all the teachers, the animators, the tutors, and the collaborators of these groups of families have been put in groups of, I think, adjoining friends, those who are working together, those who are close to each other. If they're teachers, children class teachers, they are put together in a group, in some groups. Then we have the same with animators in some groupings, as well as the tutors also going to the collaborators of the devotion gatherings.
Na tulichokifanya ili kuweza kuhimili mchakato huo ni kwamba kila kundi la timu hizo tumebaini mtu mmoja ambaye anaweza karatibu kwa kila kundi. Na mpaka sasa hao marafiki ambao wanaratibu hizo shughuli imejumuisha marafiki 152, rasmi wakiwa ni 20 na sio rasmi 133.
So coming to these collaborative arrangements, of course there are those which are formal arrangements, and those which are informal. So he mentioned of the friends who are assisting, following up with the progress of all these activities. They total to 153. Yes, 53. Those who are formal in the formal structures are 20, and those informal ones are 133.
Na ili kusaidia mchakato pia kwenye kijiji cha Tite imeundwa timu ya marafiki ambao wanahakikisha hawa marafiki wanatenda vizuri kama inavyotakiwa. Na hiyo timu imejumuisha wajumbe wa baraza, washauri wasaidizi na wasaidizi wao, na waratibu wa taasisi na wajumbe wa ATC wale ambao wanaishi kwenye kijiji hicho.
So out of this there's a team of friends which has been formed to follow up with all these activities. So he mentions of what they do, and how it comprise. So he has mentioned of the members of the local spiritual assembly are members of this team that follows up with all the activities. The auxiliary board members and the assistants, the institute coordinators, the members of the ATC residing in the village, and the collaborators of the devotional meetings that are also found in that area.
na kuna namna ambavyo tumeizoea namna ambavyo tunaibua hao marafiki. Mara nyingi hii mpangilio huibuka kutokana na zile tafakari ambazo zinafanyika kwenye ngazi ya cluster na ngazi ya kijiji, ambayo huwa tunabaini rafiki ambaye ni mzoefu ndipo anapoweza kuratibu kwenye hayo makundi ambayo yanakaribiana. Na mipangilio ngazi ya mahali hutokana na tafakari kama nilivyosema ngazi ya cluster, na mipangilio yote huibuka kutokana na uhitaji wa wakati huo ili kuhimili utata unaokuwa umejitokeza. Na baada ya kujiuliza maswali kadhaa kwenye tafakari hizo, kwa mfano, nini kifanyike ili kila anayetenda aweze kupata ule msaada ambao unahitajika? Kwa hiyo ni baadhi ya maswali ambayo tunakuwa tunajiuliza. Tutakisha jiuliza maswali, basi tunaona ni hatua gani ambazo tunaweza kuchukua.
So he has spoken of how these arrangements emerge. So arrangements emerge from reflection process carried out by the institutions and agencies at different levels through identifying friends who are experienced in respective programs. And arrangements at the cluster level arise, at this cluster level, the village level, say, while arrangements at the local level arise from cluster reflections. So all arrangements emerge in response to the needs of the time in order to address the complexities that may arise after asking several questions. For example, one of the questions they ask themselves is what should be done so that everyone who is acting or intending to act receives the necessary support.
Pia tashiriki kidogo namna ambavyo hii mipangilio inafanya kazi. Kwenye mikutano ya utatu ambayo inafanyika kila katikati ya duru, mwisho wa duru na mwanzo mwa duru, ambayo hujumuisha wale wadau wote wa kijiji au wadau wote ambao wanashiriki kwenye hiyo michakato, ndipo hujengwa ule muono wa pamoja. Na mikutano hiyo hutanguliwa na mikutano midogo midogo kama ya kamati ya ufundishaji ya eneo hukutana na wale warahisishaji wa ukuaji katika wale ambao wanarahisisha yale makundi, na kukutana na wenzi, na pia waratibu wa taasisi hukutana baada ya waratibu wa programu husika kukutana na wenzi wao. Baada ya mikutano hiyo ya kudhibiti kupuma kwa mapigo ya moyo ya kijiji, kamati ya ufundishaji ya eneo hufuatilia utekelezaji wa mipango kupitia warahisishaji wa ukuaji ambao huambatana na wenzi wao ugani. Pia waratibu wa taasisi huambatana na wenzi wao ambao huambatana pia ugani, ili kusaidia wale ambao ndio kwanza wanaanza kutenda. Pia huitisha ile mikutano ya tafakari ya mara kwa mara ngazi ya makundi ya kifamilia, ngazi ya makundi ya walimu, ngazi ya makundi ya waushaji na wakufunzi. Thank you.
Okay. So Mr. Tobias has ended up with how these collaborative arrangements are functioning at the level of the village. So he concluded that during trio reflection meetings, as well as the collective meetings at the mid-circle, end of circle, and the beginning of the circle, which bring together all stakeholders, a shared vision is built. These meetings are preceded by smaller meetings, some other small meetings, where the area teaching committees meet after the growth facilitator have met with the collaborators, and the institute coordinators also meet after each program coordinator has met with their collaborators. After these meetings, which help to gauge the heartbeat of the village, the area teaching committee follows up on the implementation of the plan through the growth facilitators who accompany their collaborators in the field. Likewise, the institute coordinators accompany their collaborators in the field. Collaborators walk along and assist those who are just beginning to serve. And they also convene regular reflection gatherings at the level of family, family groups, also at the level of teachers, in those groups of teachers, the groups of animators and tutors. Asante sana.
Thank you. So the next person will be Vitalis, Oscar, and then Albert. And then just to let those who will be following to know, then we'll have Harun. Harun? Yes, Harun Wafula. Then we'll have Humphrey from Northwest. And then we have Joshua from Western Uganda. So just be aware. If we can take the mic to Vitalis.
I would like to share a few insights just from the VC cluster, particularly in the Marambi community on its journey towards contributing to a pronounced community spirit. Particularly, I will dwell on the role of the institute in this community. This community, all its population has come to recognize the purpose of the institute process. Of course, the institute has played a big role in terms of transformation of people. Reflecting years ago and the current situation of the community, you can tell that actually the institute process has transformed these individuals in terms of thinking, attitudes, and character, particularly also in the way of solving their issues or decision making. Also, it has shaped their perceptions towards the faith. Initially, people had negative minds towards the Baha'i faith, but with the help of the institute, with the help of Baha'is that actually are helping visiting people now and then, has enabled these individuals within the community and even local leaders just to think differently about the Baha'i faith. And actually they are turning their mind towards the programs that actually the Baha'is are doing. Also, this community, there is a very high level of interactions compared with the few years ago. People are working together, people are thinking together, and actually they are doing things together. And this has happened because of the understanding that actually they have drawn from the RUI Institute courses, because over 50% of these populations has gone through RUI Institute. If it is not all 14 books, but the first few materials. Of course, I have mentioned already the approaches of their decision making. Even the local leaders in this community are not authorizing their decisions, but they are just accompanying and consulting from the issues, problems that actual people are undergoing. Another area that actually I will talk about is how these people are working together. At this point, when it comes on even the season of farming, as we are talking currently, these people are thinking, what are they going to do in terms of all people manage to grow their crops? They are thinking even the seeds that actually might be better for each and every family at least to adopt. And because we have a high collaboration between agriculture officers, even those who have retired and the newly, also they are coming together and asking them what kind of crops that actually we can grow at this moment, what kind of seeds that actually we can adopt. And I think this has been helpful in terms of even growing their crops. They are also conscious on working alongside each other. Remember, in a few years, actually people were fighting for his or her own life. But currently they are thinking about the welfare of each other. If my child is in school, what about yours? If I have food today, what about you? So I think these are the questions that actually the institute process has enabled these individuals within the Amarambi community to reflect further about it. All members of this community also is supporting Baha'i activities. Parents have opened their families, their homes as venues. Parents are preparing their children's junior youths in advance or prior for the study. But then, in this community even, the local leaders are accompanying those teachers who are home visiting parents within their villages. We have parent workshops. We have So another area that actually I can complete with is the nature of conversations and the nature of consultations that actually is happening. I will complete by just reading one paragraph that actually is practical. 3 village elders are hosting devotional meetings, children classes, and their youth are serving as teachers for the children classes in the Amarambi community. Community members are gathering together in reflection every cycle just to reflect upon experience gained from what they planned and the course they set in the last cycle, what they have learned, and reflect about the next cycle. Area assistant chief have even able to attend one of the community gathering in Kibisi village, Kibisi pocket, and shared how Baha'i education programs has managed to change behavior of the entire community. She also requesting Baha'is to help in consultation during serious cases in her office whenever it appears.
Thank you so much, Vitalis. Friends, we are left with really very little time, and we've got quite a number of friends on the list. So there is Oscar, Albert, and then as I said, there is Harun, Humphrey, Joshua, and there are 3 other names, and we are left with about 24 minutes. So see how to be generous with the remaining time. So if the mic can go next to those friends who need them, so that, or you raise up your hand if you are next, and you'll get the mic.
Dear friends, Alaba, I'm Oscar from the North region of Uganda. So I'm going to share about 2 major approaches that we use. And I'm going to focus on first the efforts of a Baha'i-inspired organization, that is Kimanyangeo, that deployed a PSA tutor in Bedmont village in Kamdini cluster. The view was that this particular village will act as a laboratory for the entire region. And for your case, Kamdini is one of the clusters being raised as a reservoir. So let's look at Bedmont village, what took place. So the entry point of this PSA tutor has been a community gathering that was held, and what was explored was the coherence of the 3 main areas of endeavor, but also the role of the protagonists. And from this meeting, some youths were identified to do book 1 and the PSA materials to assist them to, build a vibrant community. And from these efforts, we see that from this study, 2 groups emerged of farmers who are thinking about how they can improve their agricultural practices. But also we see that from this, they're able to come up with DHE plots, some backyard gardens, and poultry farming. But from these groups, you could actually see that there's a sense of unity and generosity being felt. Because in one of the groups, we realized there was an experienced farmer who was not all that sharing his knowledge with others. But as a result of the study of book 1, he was able to start, sharing how to grow tomatoes with the other friends. Friends, from this, there were a number of challenges that emerged. Because if you see from this gathering, many youths were identified, but only a few turned up. But also Kamdini being a reservoir, we are asking ourselves, how do we disseminate this learning to other clusters? And so as a regional Baha'i Council, one thing we thought about is, since this Kamdini cluster has produced a number of pioneers, and these pioneers come for reflection in this cluster, can we assist them also to do these PSA materials? And so they are assisted to do some materials like properties, to assist them to read the reality of their clusters. And from this, they were also assisted to visit some gardens in this community. And of course, from this, we really see that the insights that were generated in Kamdini cluster was given to other clusters like Oyam, Pade, and of course, they had these gardens in their communities. The other was to organize a Book 13 training. And to me, this was the breakthrough point. So from Book 13, we see that really there are a number of capacities that were developed, both in Kamdini cluster, but also in these other clusters, because the Book 13 was for the pioneers, the regional team, and some selected members of the area teaching committees, more so the secretaries. And one thing that came out clear through the time, from the time we did Book 13, we saw that there was consciousness raised in the local spiritual assemblies on the role they can do as a voice of moral authority. Particularly in Kamdini, they were able to start exploring how do we increase more participation through interacting with the local leaders. And so they organized a local leaders gathering, to increase their awareness on these programs. And really we see a change in this cluster. The other, we are able to see that some local spiritual assemblies became, conscious of how Baha'i communities can have a home, drawing from the efforts of the believers themselves. And when you look in Uganda, and in the north particularly, our strength is agriculture. So one thing that some local spiritual assemblies thought about is to encourage communal crop growing. For example, in a locality like Murusi, they were able to start growing cassava, and from this, they want to purchase land to, erect a Baha'i center. A similar thing is happening in another locality called Elibu, but also Kasatu. And for Kasatu right now, the Baha'i center is being raised. The other thing was the collective reading of reality. Friends, I said in Kamdini, the efforts was majorly, agriculture. But then when Friends started Book 13, we realized different clusters have different strength. And in Padiere cluster, which is also another reservoir in the Alur sub-region, their strength, they realized, was actually music, because it's actually part of their culture. And so what they did was to see how they can reorganize themselves to start, promoting music. Before it used to be, it used to be just the local songs, but also they had now to start composing from the holy writings and all that. But the other is the communal devotions that really led to the emergence of saving groups in the Benmot community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Albert, and then Harun, Humphrey, Charles, Kevin, and Kagori.
Friends, I just wanted to add something small on what friends have shared about this community-based initiative. Though in 2021, before receiving the message from the Universal House of Justice on 30th December 2021, it was not clear about this question of that we are now discussing about the community-based initiative. But after study, action, reflection, then it became more clearer after going through the process itself. So maybe I'll share a few community-based initiatives. One that have been spearheaded by the Baha'i International Organization Development, and the other one that have emerged from the activities of the 9-year plan. Sorry. So so one of the community-based initiatives that have emerged from the effort of Baha'i International Development of Organization is Mwanga wa Maarifa, which I'm sure friends from Matunda knows very well. The effort is to bring young people who have done with their Form 4 just to come together and advance through the Junior Youth Material, PSA program, and Training Institute. Before we were thinking about 2 years, but we say let's bring them for 6 months for this kind of education. The other thing is this initiative for health, because one of the inspiration of the community of Matunda is to better their health, to improve their agriculture, to better their environment. This question of education and the arts and media is part of the inspiration of the community. They want to better their community in those 5 broad areas that I've mentioned. But maybe I'll go deeper, not to this other community-based initiative, but I'll turn to the Radio Stawi, which I thank the organizer They invited over 6 radio presenters who are in this meeting today, and we are lucky to have such kind of number. One of the things is this initiative started when the House talks about modesty but sustained, then we can see practically from the radio, because it started like a skit in a gathering in Central West, where we realized people are not paying attention during the conversation, especially during the reflection in the evening. People are sleeping. Then we realized to come up with a skit, and we call it Baha'i Radio. Then it merged into, we realized we need to reach out to more people, because the vision of the plan is to release the society building power. Then we said we need to bring the radio into Radio Jamii, but at the end we realized someone took our name, then we decided to have the name Radio Star, which you are using right now. So this radio station, it has gone through different stages, because it started like a skit, then we learned how to use WhatsApp, not just clicking your WhatsApp, you record something, you share in different WhatsApp, and then we learned from expertise on how to do editing. But right now we are having the concept we have translated into reality. We're having a radio which is now structured and serving over 11,300 people within 2 locations in Luanda, in Matunda Soy cluster. So this radio station has made a lot of progress. One is to learn on how to develop content, and this we have been working closely with the coordinator for child education to help us when we think about the education for children, to socialize the concept from the child material and share with the population within Matunda Soy. We have been working also with the junior youth coordinator who generate content, study cycle coordinators, tutors for PSA, and other like-minded people within the community whom they have been helping in developing the content. Before, it was not easy because we are Baha'is and we love our religion so much, then it was not clear how to socialize this concept. But through the support of the auxiliary board member and other institutions and agencies, we have learned on how to develop content. And with this, it has helped us to interact with the different organizations and agencies within Matunda Soy. And right now, as we speak, the radio is working with their sister local radio station within, and also what Mama Rachel mentioned when we were in Matunda in 2024, on how we can also interact with the other agencies and government institutions. We can see it practically where one of the radio presenters participate in a high-level meeting at the sub-county level, where the deputy county commissioner is the chair, and we discuss about the community building process on how we can better our community. Because of time, Navid said we can speak for 5 minutes, but we can write paragraphs and paragraphs, and then we don't have limitation to share with you. Thank you very much.
So Harun Humphrey Joshua. Harun, where are you so that you can get a mic? Where is Harun Wafula?
Hello, dear friends. Okay, I'm going to share about semi-cluster. There's an initiative that started back in 2024, and this one from the local speech assembly. So this one came about after a series of conferences, youth conferences, women conference, and all other gatherings happening within the cluster. And most of the issues that were addressed actually was just around how to change the life of the people in that community. And mostly it was just addressing the challenges facing the community. And most of it was on the food security. And one area that we as a community are trying to address is how are we going to better, to improve on how we do our farming. Because it came to our knowledge that most of the people, they kept on practicing only one type of crop, and then the idea of maybe trying to bring in other ideas, that's what came in. So the idea of coming up with maybe planting bananas and also working with the schools just to address that issue. So the first one, it was from the women who participated in one of the conference within the cluster. And then as they were talking, one of the mothers around there suggested that maybe one way to address it is actually just coming together. And what way the way that they were going to use maybe to come together, one way was just through the study circle. So there were around 7 women who came together and started to study book 1. But within that conversation, they were talking about transforming their own life and transforming the life of the community. The idea of coming up with a project for the banana came in. And then actually one of our mother there, who happened to be knowledgeable about the banana project, assist them. And it's actually going on well. It's still at the initial stage. We can't share much on that, but still it's a process that the local speech assembly is still following up. And there's another idea that we are working on. The school is just nearby, and most of the children, they come from far. So issues like maybe going back for lunch and all that, trying to address on how they can improve on the quality of the education. And one way to do that is to improve, Waswahili wanasema ukilisha tumbo, everything inakuwa sawa. So we try to address on how do we make sure they are kwamba wanashiba. So the best way, we talk to the head teacher, and then the head teacher, of course the school has got a small farm, and the local speech assembly, together with the school management and some parents around, decided that during the rainy season, maybe the best way is to try to start now having this project to assist now the maize that will be harvested within this farm. It will start supporting the children in the school, so they don't have to go back home for lunch and then come back. I think those are the 2 areas that the local speech assembly is still following closely. It's still, like I said, still at the initial stage. So there's not much more to share on that. But those 2 things are just the ones that are happening within the cluster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harun. Thank you. So, dear Humphrey, Joshua, and then Charles, kindly be generous on time so that we can have everybody sharing.
I think I'll be sharing from Northwest region some of the initiatives of community-based initiatives that is happening within the region. But I will have some statistics across the region before I move to Makutano cluster, specifically Misemwa village. I think at the region, we are now sustaining about 174 initiatives of limited duration and 8 sustained projects across some of the advanced villages. And this has been possible because the region, after thinking about these initiatives, decided to develop some capacities and to create awareness in the friends to understand how these activities could be identified through the study of Book 13 that assisted the friends from these advanced villages. And also to systematize these efforts, the region formulated a team of 5 friends who are to follow up with the process of the unfolding processes and assist the friends in building capacity and to be able to follow what is happening within the villages. These activities emerged from the villages after the intensification of a process of growth. Because when most of the people are involved in the institute process, then they become conscious of some of the conditions in their villages and how they will bring them to find some solutions to assist the friends come out of it. I will talk about Misemwa because some of the community-based initiatives are in that village and some of them are interrelated. There is the community welfare in that village, and there is a community bank in that village, there is a service project by junior youth in the same village, and all these activities are related in one way or another. Community welfare itself was formed when the village is under a very difficult condition, because it is a cosmopolitan, and here in Kenya, most of these settings face some challenges, political, tribal, and cultural setbacks. And that was what the condition at Misemwa during the time of the formation of the welfare. It was even difficult for the Baha'i community to form and sustain activities. And so the local spiritual assembly, in consultation with the local leaders and some community elders, decided to come together and think on how to overcome these challenges. And so from that, the several consultative meetings was organized and the community welfare was born. At the heart of this welfare was the application of the Baha'i teachings and principles, because the Constitution had some of the teachings and principles that helped the people to overcome the challenges. Like at the heart there was this principle of oneness of mankind. There is this principle of searching after truth, which tried to assist us overcome the challenge of following political aspirants blindly, but to think of ourselves and see how we can overcome this. So this constitution assisted the village to be organized, and then they started understanding their realities. They understood that they are people from the same family and they could live together in harmony. So that one was achieved at some point, and then other lines of action emerged from this welfare. They started following the line of agriculture, the line of health, and the line of education. But I will talk about education, because here is where the community found their capacity to live together in a systematic way, because the community welfare had a committee that runs the affairs of the village, and this committee assisted the friends to understand that education should be balanced, both material and spiritual education to go hand in hand. And so during the school holidays, they come together and allow animators and school teachers to assist these students to get both educations. And it is within this context that the community bank was born to assist in systematizing the habit of saving and to grow, to bring prosperity within these people, because this habit was not there. It was realized after finding out that people are not able to save their monthly savings in the village. I think, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Humphrey. Thank you.
I'm going to share my reflections from Western region, Rampala cluster, and then basically focusing on Chitunguru village. And basically in the efforts to improve the socio-economic welfare of the community of the greatest name, Chitunguru village is working with a PSA tutor from a Baha'i-inspired organization, Kimanyangeyo. And then it's collaborating closely with local spiritual assembly and cluster agencies to see how they can build a vibrant community. And then we say some of the social action initiatives, community-based organizations, the cluster consult together as a community to see how best they can read the needs of their community. And then in so, they came up with two strategies and areas to improve. One of them was to how the community can collectively transform in addressing the needs. So they started with two aspects. One of them was to see how the community can come together to address some of the social needs. And then another one was to make sure that they make sure that each and every home get access to clean water. So they started with addressing these social needs, and one of them was like in that community Chitungu that is having 292 families, and then it's having a population of 1,292. So they just found out that these people are are divided in 2 different sectors. And then in these 2 different sectors, you find that a sector is having around 30 families. So it was so difficult for these 30 families to address their needs in case of any challenge. So they decided to merge all the groups and formed one group that included everyone in the community to make sure that in the case of any challenge or any issue that needs to be addressed is being addressed as a community as a whole. And now they are exploring the aspect of making sure that each family in the community gets access to clean water. And then we see the spiritual qualities in these consultative spaces, because they started with 2 groups of families. And then the other groups were really patient. And then they made sure that these 2 groups are having access to clean water. But then they are trying to contribute means in making sure that they establish a tank, source of water, and also make sure that they put pipes in place to make sure that the other parts of the community, they also get access to clean water. But I will also share on how this community-based initiative have had an impact on the transformation of individual and collective as a community. So I will share an experience of one friend in the cluster during the consultative space that we had in the community. And then this space was facilitated by our dear councillor. But then amidst the discussion, there came a friend who was drunk and joined the discussion. Then when the space was open for everyone to share their views, now this friend called Asaf stood up, and the friends at regional level and cluster level were worried on what Asaf was going to share in that space. But then Asaf questioned the friends as to why they didn't invite him to participate in this conversation that was really fruitful to the development of the community. So from the deliberations, they said the space was to be added on tomorrow, and then we saw Asaf coming up very early in the morning at 8, and then this time around he was not drunk. So he participated in all the discussions, and then we divided ourselves in 2 groups on how the first cohorts of the friends who are going to participate in the study of the PSA materials were going to be assisted to start studying book 1. So Asaf was also divided in a certain group, and actually was so instrumental in mobilizing other friends to take part in the study of this institute material and also raise their spiritual qualities. So we saw Asaf now being a member of the group that was pursuing the DHA plot in its preparation for the community to generate learnings. So from that DHA plot, we saw Asaf also now disseminating his learnings to his own garden. So this Asaf's garden became an inspiration to other friends, because we saw Asaf now stopping drinking, and now you could see him coming to spaces when he's dressed smartly, and also his inspiration also started to attract other people to participate in the program and also participate in the study of institute courses. The fact that he got married, he was able to get himself a wife, and now he's settled in his family. An inspiration that has attracted many people to participate in the programs of the community building process and also the study of the institute courses. For the interest of time, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So Charles, you have the mic.
I'm going to share something. Building on what Nelly shared about the collaborative arrangements, but how these collaborative groups organize their own efforts to improve some aspect of community life and promote broader participation and help the growth and development of community to become self-perpetuating. Of course, these collaborative arrangements emerge from the realities of the community life as a result of spaces and consultation and reflection. And of course, this arrangement contributes to the improvement of some aspect of life of a community. And I'll just give an experience from Tiriki West cluster. This came up after the visit of Sina, and how we learned how, as Baha'is, we can actually be intimate to the life of a community, and how we view the processes of community life. And in this case, we thought of, we initiated a research action programs whereby we were focusing on different processes of community life, where the community members, the Baha'i-inspired organization, in this case the Muleke organization, government entities, representation of the government entities from different departments, health, environment, from governance. We had local leaders, including chief. And the idea here was actually to discuss about concerns of a community, the development of a community. And in this case, bringing these like-minded individuals and organizations with similar views in matters, processes of community life. And through these spaces, we are able to collectively think about the aspiration of the community, on how to better the community in terms of approaches, and how actually we are able really to infuse some of the Baha'i principles in how these organizations are operating. And of course, through this, they are able really to get our approach towards social economic development. And in this case, we creatively apply or use PSA units or PSA some of the selected PSA units to really assist some of these friends to study as they apply in solving some of the issues that are affecting the community. There's another experience also from Matunda Soy, and in this case it is with regard to collaboration among institutions of the faith and organization of the community. In 2024, in the spirit of enhancing broader participation, there was a intentional collaboration among the local spiritual assembly of Luanda and a Mweleke organization, where it actually organized a space for where it invited around 15 organizations focusing on different aspects of community life. And through this, there was a participation of around 600, and it touched on different aspects: health, education, environment, and it was a gathering where it enabled actually these different actors to learn from one another. They were able also to align and identify areas of complementarity and reinforcing culture of cooperation rather than competition. And it is from here also that we were able really to bring also junior students or pupils from junior school who are actually junior youth, and we invited professors from different universities to just come and talk about career alignment and career choices. And from here, it really proved very helpful, because from there it's where now we again thought of how to even implement some of the junior youth program in selected schools. Yeah, thank you. I can see time is off.
Thank you, Charles. Kevin?
Allow friends. So I'll just add on what Bwana Charles and Nelly have already shared about collaborative arrangements. Naturally, in the villages and in the communities, there are different groupings that are found within the community. Say, for example, even in the structure of the village, it's structured in a way that we have clans, which has a number of it has its own kind of leadership. You find that some of those who are clan leaders are also some of the Baha'is. But within a village, say for example in Givogi, we were trying to just to learn, we are learning how to describe our own reality, like what makes up of the community life, and what are some of the institutions, agencies, non-governmental organizations that are operating within the village. And from our last analysis, we found like 27 such institutions and agencies that are operating within the village. Because one of the big questions we've been asking ourselves is how do we begin to use this kind of setting to begin to like introduce the Baha'u'llah's revelation in whatever they are doing, and learning from one experience in Matunda Soy about one of the organizations that emerged on its own, but after meeting the revelation through the house of worship and also going through the PSA program, they began to become protagonists in the community, and it really reshaped what they are doing in the village. So we are really trying to draw on such experiences on how we can be able to do that. But then, as Nelly already shared, like we are also learning about this concept of working with community learning centers. And in Givogi, there are about 12 community learning centers at different levels. Of course, one of the things we are trying to do is to how like we make one of the place to become a center for learning. In a way, we are learning about how to offer the educational content, and this is from the institute process. But in such a center, we are also learning. In some of the centers, we also have a community school. We have a PSA group, and how does it now become a space where all the community members can be able to come together to share their own experiences, to reflect about the reality of the village, and begin to see what are some of the challenges that the community is facing, and how do we begin to navigate through such challenges. And maybe because of time, I will share one more example about the community school. How of course, for many years, many people have been seeing a community school as a Baha'i school. But then one of the big questions we've been asking ourselves is how do we change this perception to see as our own school and not to see as a Baha'i school? And how does this community school now begin to naturally interact with the other teachers within the same community, and to begin to find the Baha'u'llah's revelation to find expression in whatever they are doing in their schools. So for the community school teachers, they've been organizing some spaces where other teachers from the nearby schools come together just to reflect on what is happening within the community, within their own schools. And there are some selected paragraphs and writings from Revelation where that guides this kind of discussion, generally to think about different aspects of education, even thinking about what's the purpose of education, when thinking about even the learners, how do we think about these young children, how do we think about the learners, and what are some of the methodologies that we can be able to use in order to really influence Baha'u'llah's teachings in these schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, dear Kevin, and thank you so much to everyone. Friends, we have to bring it to a conclusion because of time. The experiences that you've all shared is very rich, and as it had been mentioned earlier, the role of the training institute in not just raising the capacity of the individuals, but from what you've shared, how the collective capacity of the community is raised in reading its own reality and responding to the aspirations of the population in these places. So as we conclude, I will invite Dr. Debbie, who will give some comments.
I think that you just said exactly what I was going to say. So but I was just thinking, friends, it's just so lovely to be here and to just hear how much has been learnt in these past few years. As some of you know, I lived in Uganda for 12 years, well, some years back now, but to see how much the community is learning. And I was just thinking what an incredible outpouring of love it is, and how happy Abdul Baha would be to just see how much people are taking from the Institute and then giving back to everyone, how we're thinking collectively. We don't think so much about our own problems, but are the problems of everybody, but with such joy, and how much that makes a difference to a life that sometimes we have many challenges, but I think through the Institute and just our ability to rely on God and to rely on each other, it makes the journey of life so much sweeter. And just to hear this, this transformational process that is happening with us all as we're thinking about our children, the youth, the mothers, families. Like, I don't think there is a community on earth that does this. So what an amazing gift to be able to participate with this. So thank you so much.